Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. Welcome once again to the Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen. We've got a great Backlash prediction show on tap for you guys this week. But even better, we have Josh Isenberg alongside me to discuss the Puerto Rico PLE Backlash coming up this weekend. Cannot wait for that show. We discuss it in great detail. Discuss a little bit of the draft as well, which was a hodgepodge of good, bad, and downright ugly, including certain people just randomly selecting superstars for the brands, including Rob Van Dam, Teddy Long, and Michael P.S. Hayes. You can follow me on Twitter at JuicySteen. My Instagram is Juicy Wrestling Closet. JuicySteen.podbean.com. You can also find this. Please rate and review 5 stars on iTunes. That would be greatly appreciated. And you can also find this podcast on Google Podcasts, which is fantastic. Quickly, before we get to the predictions, I'd like to do my vintage pay-per-view recommendation. This week, of course, New Year's Revolution 2005, headlined by a 6-man Elimination Chamber match with Triple H as the champion going in. That was the last pay-per-view that was held in Puerto Rico for WWE, which 18 years, and we're coming up on another one. And for that show, we got a great main event of potentially either Brock versus Cody, but the real main event, Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest in a San Juan street fight. Josh and I talk about the whole thing and more. You can follow him at Josh Eisenberg 4. I'm Juicy Steen. Here come the Backlash predictions on the Juice Box. All right, Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen here. Once again here, we have predictions for a pay-per-view, and I would not want to be predicting and previewing any other shows without any other guest than the one I have in the bullpen, Josh Eisenberg.
I am ready to go. You're calling in Mariano Rivera circa 2005. I'm ready to roll. And I'll be honest with you, Juice. Backlash is a little bit more intriguing this year than years past for me. So I'm excited to dive in to the card, especially about a week after the beginning and the conclusion of the WWE draft. So let's dive right into the beautiful waves of San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Yeah, when you and Elaine went down there. Yeah, man, this show, I mean, every time WrestleMania ends, it's like, damn, well, nothing exciting until Money in the Bank again. But this year, Backlash is more than rematches from WrestleMania, which we haven't had. Well, I guess last year when they did WrestleMania Backlash and they called it that, that's all we got. But this year, not only is it in Puerto Rico, first time for a pay-per-view there since 2005, New Year's Revolution, we have a lot of Puerto Rican wrestlers from that area here in huge spots. We have an interesting match that was created at a thin air, and we have a match that may or may not determine the future, guy who could potentially be in that world title conversation on Raw. So we'll go over match by match, and as you did mention, the draft began and concluded this past week, but all of those picks do not go into effect until after this pay-per-view on Saturday. Therefore, there's a few matches that we'll be referring to where someone is a champion of one brand, and whether they win or lose, they are on the other brand starting on Monday. So with that confusion, be that as it may, we're going to try to navigate the PLE in PR, that is Backlash. I'm just going to go from the top to bottom here on Wikipedia, although I will save 2 of the matches for last, but I don't know the actual match order. We probably won't know that for, until Saturday night.
Yep.
So first and foremost, let's just kick off with a big 6-man. Now, it's not that I'm tired of the Bloodline or KO and Sammy and whatever, but I kind of am. I'm tired of the well, there's only one tag champion and there's only like one dominant faction that like leads everything. I'm ready for 2 sets of tag titles, and Matt Riddle to go on his own, and maybe Solo Sikoa eventually go on his own, and the Usos. But here we are. We get a 6-man tag to hopefully culminate something between Matt Riddle and the tag team champions KO and Sami Zayn versus Solo Sikoa and the Usos, the Bloodline. Josh, I'll send it to you first. Oh, by the way, you can find him on Twitter at Josh Isenberg 4. What do you think about this match, and who do you have winning? Are you about over these 6-man tags that we've already been seeing every week?
Yeah, I mean, it's been just changing pieces every week on Raw and SmackDown, and Solo facing everybody. It seems like since he's been called up from NXT, he has had singles main events on Raw, on SmackDown. It has really been, in my opinion, maybe not the MVP, because he's not the person that's been really driving the story as it was the past 8 months. It was obviously more Sammy and Jay, but he's always been that constant. He's always been the guy that's been there whenever you needed a big match, whenever you needed him to, whether cause a disqualification or finally losing to Cody Rhodes, a week before WrestleMania. I'm over the 6-man tags. I think this would be a good match. I also don't understand that Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, the undisputed tag team champions, get drafted to Raw. So in theory, they're going to just defend the titles on Raw, and nobody on SmackDown will be able to go for those titles unless they split them up. And do we really need 2 tag team champions? We've done that before. So it's like even the women's tag team champions, the women's tag team champions that have always been on both shows were drafted to Monday Night Raw. Like, why weren't they just excluded from the draft? I don't understand that. But I mean, the Matt Riddle thing, I think it's really good because when Riddle came back, you weren't sure where he was going to fit in. He did have unfinished business with Solo Sikoa. After this, though, I'd like the Bloodline to win, and then maybe – I don't know. I think they do win here because they have lost so much over the past month since WrestleMania. But again, I don't know the outcome because I don't know what you do after the outcome because of those tag team titles not being split up.
Yeah, I agree with most of that sentiment. And as we talk about this, I do believe I will be facing Solo Sikoa next week on Raw, as they were all drafted to Raw. Now, you did make a good point there. Everything, all these titles are drafted. My biggest problem with the draft is that there is no competition between Raw and SmackDown to where any brand would want any other guy or girl for any reason. It's just we pick. And the worst part was they had multiple people selecting these picks, and those people selecting those picks were selecting picks for both brands. Why was
had
Teddy
no
Long?
Affiliation to a brand? Yeah, they were just guest speakers basically.
And even legacy performers such as Teddy Long, who is the you don't think of Raw when you think of him. You think of SmackDown and tag team matches and one-on-one with The Undertaker. You don't think of him on Raw, and he's announcing picks for both. I like the Matt Riddle inclusion here with the Solo history between those two guys. And, with the obvious elephant in the room being the absence of Randy Orton still, we really don't know what is the future for Matt Riddle. And the other part of this, I'm sure we'll find out as soon as Monday hits. Not even on Raw, but I'm assuming they're going to maybe announce the tournament entrance for the WWE World Heavyweight title. I would like to see a Matt Riddle be in there because after this match, I don't know where he goes. I'd like to say that he maybe pins Solo here and causes dissension, even more dissension within the bloodline. I think that's where I'm going to go with it. I think Matt Riddle is going to get the pinfall on Solo. Purely because the Usos have already had their they already lost. They've already had their down period. And now maybe Solo has a fracture in the bloodline. And, maybe the questions arise, what have you. But like you said, man, I don't know what they're going to do with the tag titles. So if Owens and Zayn are on Raw in the tag, I think either split them or just keep them, as one. And they can go, across brands for that. But I'm actually going to go with the good guys here and say Riddle, KO, and Sami Zayn. Who did you pick here?
I think the Bloodline wins, and I just think it's because they've lost so much recently. This will give them an opportunity to, jump back up a little bit in the favor of Roman Reigns whenever he does come back. Which I don't know when he actually will be back. He'll, do we have him? He's not going to – I don't think he'll be at Night of Champions because I don't think they have anybody right now that in 1 month they can put him –
He's a champion. It's Night of Champions.
But they haven't
He's
said
not
every
gonna be
title's been defended. I think their answer for Roman not being there is actually creating this new title and having that title crowned at Night of Champions.
there. So not only are they creating the title because they don't want to dethrone Roman, it's
He's
another
not gonna be
vehicle for
there.
him to
Yep.
not wrestle.
Exactly. Absolutely. That's
Wow.
exactly what it is. So
I love the creative work behind the scenes. Hey, we don't want to have Roman ever lose. So not only will he not wrestle at the next show, we'll make a reason for that be we'll create another title. And
exactly. And then but you think about it like this. If he doesn't do Night of Champions,
right,
he probably might not do Money in the Bank.
Ain't doing Money in the Bank, that's for sure.
He may, but he doesn't really need to because the
why
ladders sell themselves.
Well, true, and I think that's where a lot more pieces, and maybe we get that guy that ends up dethroning Roman by winning Money in the Bank, because I don't know if any guys strictly on SmackDown have that in them right now. But I think that he can get away with the match at Night of Champions. My only issue is we'll get to it, but I think the Who could be coming out of the Seth Rollins Omos match, which we'll get to later. Let's go into a women's title match here. Bianca Belair defends the Raw Women's title, although she's on SmackDown as of next Monday, against Io Sky with Damage Control in tow. I would just assume Bianca Belair wins this, but as we mentioned, she is the Raw Women's Champion. We'll mention now that Rhea Ripley is the SmackDown Women's Champion, but both of those women were drafted to the opposite brand. So if Bianca Belair were to retain the Raw Women's title, she would then, in theory, appear on SmackDown as either the Raw Women's Champion, or they would just do a title swap, which people panned in the past, or by some miracle, Io Sky and Zelina Vega will win these respective matches, and Bianca and Rhea can just start fresh on their new brand. I'm going to go with the former and think everybody's going to get pissed. They're going to do a title swap, and Bianca's going to win this. I don't see why she should lose.
I know, I agree with that, Juice. I also, you didn't even mention this. Just say Zelina wins and just say that Io Sky win. Both of those women are on SmackDown. Damage Control got drafted to SmackDown, and LWO got drafted to SmackDown. So realistically, there's no real big solution here aside from the title swap. Whenever, and I don't think we'll see that on television. Like I don't think we'll see both women exchange titles. I think what'll happen is Monday on Raw, Rhea will come out and she'll they'll announce that there was a swap of championships and they both won their respected matches at Backlash. But it's interesting to me because Io Sky has been really looked at since coming up to the main roster as someone that, great example. Bianca said she was held back from Bayley and from Dakota, which I agree. The language barrier is always going to be things with those international superstars where they're not going to be able to completely connect. There's very few that have been able to completely connect on a consistent basis, and I'm not even going to put Asuka in that because I think she connects, but again, not consistent. So I think Bianca,
in another way, I think. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, her stuff that's. I say verbal, but it's more of just her chaotic energy is what draws people to her. Her charisma. Yeah. Same with the Nakamura. Their English might be limited, but their charisma sets them apart from other wrestlers who may just have a generic promo. But if you have that charisma to take you over the top, you really don't need it.
Yeah, and I think the best promos that Io Sky did when she was being pre-recorded in NXT, and they actually had the lower third of the closed captioning, which really made it great because you got to read and connect with her even though you don't speak her language. I thought that was great. I don't know why they don't do that on the main roster.
I've wondered that for a long time, and I've thought that would be such a people our age, if you can't hear what things are happening on the TV with low dialogue, you have the subtitles on, let alone people you don't know what they're saying because it's the language you're not familiar with. So it would benefit WWE or AEW or any company if you have international talent. Let them, see what they are going to say, especially if the promos are, maybe not scripted, but bullet pointed. This is an easy way to get their point across without them having to stumble over what you wrote for them,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, what you'll see is Bianca and Io put on a really good, 15 probably 12 to 15 minute match. I don't think the Rhea match is going to be that long with Zelina, but
No.
Bianca needs to, they've built her to a point now where she's super Belair. Like she is really not losing to many people. I don't see her losing to I hate to say a random challenger, but a random challenger at a random pay-per-view.
Right.
I really do see Bianca carrying this championship all the way to SummerSlam and potentially losing it to SummerSlam. And then you see the SmackDown women's roster with her there. There's a lot of options for them to go. They could go back to the well and go Charlotte. We haven't really seen a Charlotte Bianca, as much as I think Bianca against other competitors. But there's a lot of options now on SmackDown. So I'm excited to see what they'll do after this, but Bianca's going to win this match.
I tend to agree. And bouncing off that point with what you're saying, Charlotte's going to be out for I don't know how long after her match at WrestleMania. Why not have her come into a feud with maybe a newly unanointed champion such as Bianca Belair, because we've mentioned it already, Money in the Bank. I think the Money in the Bank is a vehicle that you could see Bianca losing her championship to. Yeah, could be a random challenger, but it's a way that everybody has seen a loss, whether, deemed warranted or not. It's the Money in the Bank. Anything can happen. You're not expecting it, what have you. So that's a way maybe you could get the title off of her down the line and it not really take anything away, and she can rebuild herself up, because I don't know what you think, but I really do think that regardless of title and who's holding anything, if holding anything at all, that Bianca versus Rhea Ripley next year at WrestleMania would be unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you hit the nail on the head right there, where she can rebuild herself. And I think by rebuilding herself, she needs to lose the championship and take a few months off. She doesn't need to change her look. No. But again, she's really been the exact same character, the exact same person. Really since the beginning of before WrestleMania, 37, where she won the championship at 37. She hasn't really faced a lot of adversity aside from, a few instances with Becky Lynch whenever they tried to make her a heel. So I think, a reset button on Bianca towards the end of this calendar year, and then have her come back. Maybe it doesn't have to come back at the Royal Rumble, because we've always seen those surprises at the Rumble. They come back, they win, we get it. But maybe in November, December, where she comes back, has a couple of good matches under her belt, and then really ramps up a potential with her and Rhea, which I don't know what match you have next in the card, but that makes me believe that Rhea's not going to lose the championship for a while. I don't think she's going to drop the title until at least after WrestleMania next year.
Yeah, I could see that as well. For this match, I will be picking Bianca Belair. And again, just to back up what you said, but you said no adversity. I've said Jane Cena. You said Super Belair. Having that, you can't help but think of a John Cena. Like, God, anytime he was, champion or, quote, jammed down everybody's throat and it was too much, and he would go away for a bit. He'd get a new shirt. He'd reinvent himself, and, he all of a sudden he's kind of right back. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, and I don't think that could be said more for a character like Bianca Belair, who went from beloved NXT star to literal queen, no offense to Zelina or Charlotte, of WWE, the ambassador for the division, for the company, and she's killed it in that role. And I think she has a future, with this company for 5, 10 plus more years. Absolutely. So I think going away for a couple of months just to refresh, I don't think will hurt her in the least. Let's go into that next women's title match. Rhea Ripley defends against Puerto Rico's own Zelina Vega. This is one of, I believe, just the 3 Puerto Rican descendant talents on this card, which, man, the crowd's going to be electric all night. But even though I'm sure they probably realize Zelina's not going to take this one, I think she'll be beloved, and Rhea Ripley's going to get nuclear heat. So what do you think about this one?
I agree. I think, Zelina will come in and really get that hometown crowd reaction, maybe not as big as Bad Bunny will later in the night. I don't think Zelina has a chance to win this match. I think she'll put in a little bit of offense early, but I really do think it's just the beginning of what we're going to see, a dominant year, a calendar year of Rhea Ripley. When I look at the rosters, whether it was Raw or SmackDown, there wasn't really somebody whenever Rhea captured the title a month ago that I said, okay, we can see this is the person that might dethrone her this year. I didn't see – and it's nothing against any of the other women, but we're seeing Rhea Ripley kind of on such a different level, and I think it's because she's surrounded by a stable of men, but she looks like she's the leader of men, if that makes sense. She's not in a
Yeah.
traditional women's storyline where it's all about I'm the champion and the competitor. We used to be best friends and now we're not. That's really the only big storylines that they've had in the women's division in such a long time. Now she's just such a completely different built champion. But I do think, 7 to 9 minutes, a couple of quick moves for Zelina, but then ultimately, I think that the LWO and Ray and that part do not interfere, or the Judgment Day do not interfere in this match because of obviously the match later on in the night that we'll see.
Right.
But again, it goes back to Zelina kind of getting, the opportunity in front of her hometown crowd, but ultimately getting that heat for Rhea and her continued dominance here after winning the championship at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and something you brought up is, this is not your normal role for, a quote female in a faction. Now, it's almost reminiscent, me being a WCW guy. Back when Harlem Heat brought on Sensational Sherry, she went from like just manager of the team to being just Sister Sherry, a part of the team. And her role was so much more than just being on the outside and maybe helping the team. And I know roles have changed now in 2023 where the women's division, I'm sure Sherry would have been a killer in a women's singles division this time around. But to see Rhea Ripley, and she is, I mean, Finn Balor is a former world champion, Damian Priest is on his rise as a star. This is probably the hottest he's ever been. And Dominic Mysterio, who had his biggest moment this past WrestleMania. Rhea Ripley is the champion. She's the most successful currently going. And I think she flies the flag for the Judgment Day, proudly. And I don't see Zelina. I think she makes it a close match for a little bit. She's not going to win. I think this is your traditional, you have your big moment in your hometown, but sorry, pal, you're not going over tonight.
Exactly.
That has happened how many times where, hometown, I can't wait to see them, and then they lose.
Countless number of times. Yep, absolutely.
Yes, very, very few times does it work out in their favor. Although in the potential main event with the street fight, both those guys are Puerto Rican, so it's going to be a draw. But Rhea Ripley, I think, is going to win this match. And she could take the title all the way to WrestleMania. And look, Roman Reigns has been champion for like 5 years in a row. Rhea Ripley can hold it for a whole year, and it won't. I won't blink at that at all. And I agree. I don't think the factions will get involved here. I think they'll save that for the end. Let's get into some triple threat action for apparently this title's on SmackDown now. Austin Theory versus Bobby Lashley versus Bronson Reed. Triple threat for the U.S. title. Austin Theory just got drafted to SmackDown. I'm going to look here. Let's see. Bobby Lashley is on SmackDown now as well.
And Bronson's on Raw, yeah.
Bronson's on Raw? Okay. Forgive me. Everybody went to Raw or SmackDown. Half of them just swapped titles, and it's tough to keep up with all this stuff, but they certainly shook things up a bit. I've been saying for a bit that Bronson Reed's been a guy in traffic. He's not really going anywhere. He's kind of stuck. And hopefully, he's been building up though, as recently with this Bobby Lashley thing. They've had a couple of hard-hitting bouts recently, and I like the Austin Theory being that kind of outlier here. Even though he's the champion, he's not a big guy compared to the two. Although he's kind of decent in stature overall. I think this is going to be an underrated match. I think if you get this thing 10 to 12 minutes, you can really highlight all these guys and how they really accentuate in the ring. They're better pieces. I still think Austin Theory retains this, though. I think they got a bright future for him. And, hey, the parallels with John Cena, U.S. champion on SmackDown, seems pretty good for Austin Theory, who's been the U.S. champ for a while and, big win against John Cena. So I like Theory in this match. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Theory wins this match as well. And when you look at, it was interesting because you're right. He is kind of the outlier because we've seen Bronson and Bobby, for a few weeks just beat the hell out of each other in some actual interesting and just fun, matches on Monday Night Raw. And one of the biggest things that I see here with Austin Theory is I see Theory going over to SmackDown with such a unique opportunity for him, because if you look at the SmackDown roster and looking at who you see after the draft, aside from Lashley, who I feel like Lashley and Theory have fought each other for the past year. You know, like it always seems like it's been those two with a sprinkle of Seth from time to time on Monday Night Raw, but we've seen those guys go back and forth so often, and I could see Lashley elevating himself maybe to a match with Roman Reigns, even though I'm not completely interested in seeing that at this time. But you look at the roster, and aside from, you know, I guess a guy like AJ Styles, who's still coming back from injury, there's not a lot of faces for him to fight. You know, you have Karrion Kross, you have LA Knight, you have, you know, maybe they do something where he brings up the U.S. title open challenge, and you have younger guys like a Cameron Grimes who got drafted to SmackDown getting an opportunity. Or maybe he finds himself as the United States champion battling against guys in the LWO like a Santos Escobar, because I don't think Mysterio needs to compete for the U.S. title. So maybe he just takes kind of a managerial backseat a little bit to let these other individuals shine. But other than that, I mean, you're not going to see Edge, right? You're not going to see Edge compete for the U.S. title. Maybe you finally give Montez Ford or Angelo Dawkins a singles championship run. Yeah. But there's just, it's a wide open net after Theory wins. And I do think I agree with you that Theory is going to win at Backlash. And it's exciting to see who he faces next, because this, again, is just a triple threat match to put on the card with, you know, with a little bit of backstory, not too much at this point right now. But you're right. It's a good comparison to how John Cena was risen on SmackDown as a U.S. champion. And I mean, I think we can all agree within the next, you know, maybe 1 to 2 years, Theory is going to be consistently competing in world championship matches.
I would agree with that. And I really don't hate that idea of Austin Theory. Again, so almost all of these matches, and not that they're moot, but it's like everything just flips immediately after this show. Like, so whatever the result is, sure, great. But it's almost like a vacuum because things change immediately. And I don't hate the idea of Austin Theory going to SmackDown where, look, let's be real. He's going to be the most fighting champion on that brand. So he should take advantage of that. And if they do an open challenge, you get literally anybody. I don't mind Cameron Grimes. I don't hate LA Knight at all. In fact, I would almost assume that LA Knight, if they get their, you know, heads right, they could get him in a spot against an Austin Theory and highlight both those guys on the mic, where I think Austin Theory's gotten a ton better and LA Knight is, you know, easily getting a lot of pops almost every single week, you know.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I'm excited about Theory going to SmackDown and Imperium going to Raw is because I think Theory was so overexposed on Monday Night Raw at times, where when he wasn't as good as he is kind of getting now on the microphone, you would still see 2 or 3 segments with Theory. On SmackDown, you don't need to have him do 2 or 3 segments, which is a big reason why Gunther is more, in a way, even though he's a heel, beloved or more appreciated, or the fans enjoy him more because they just saw him put on banger matches on SmackDown. Theory was looked in a more broad brush because he was overexposed on multiple segments every single Monday night because they didn't have a Universal Champion, or they didn't have the Bloodline storyline dominating the airwaves.
Yeah, and it's a 3-hour show. On SmackDown, you only get 2 hours, but that means if you're on that show, your segment is probably more important overall, and that means you have to put forth that effort to maintain that spot on that show because there's a less time on the whole thing.
Absolutely.
So I really like both. I like that Gunther went to Raw because I think, again, you can accentuate him over there, a brand new palette of people to go against, and same with Theory, assuming Theory does win this match, and I think that he will. All right, we got 3 more here. All 3 of these I'm pretty excited, but for all different reasons. Let's go with the first one, where the winner of this could very well have an advantage if either are included in this forthcoming WWE World Heavyweight Title tournament. Seth freaking Rollins versus Omos. Now, came out of nowhere. Honestly, Seth Rollins didn't even know this match was happening until he saw that it was happening on Twitter. Yep. So, yeah, there's not much to this, but I can't say that I'm not intrigued, with the looming tournament, in the distance. And we don't know. Is it 4 people? Is it 8 people? Is it 12? Like, we don't know what type of tournament it is. So this match, once you get higher in the card and it's a singles match, and I'm going to say the same thing with Cody and Brock, even though Brock's a free agent, any of these guys could, in theory, no pun intended, have that shot, at least go in the tournament as a top or one of the top guys, challenging for that potentially that new title. So these matches, although maybe random to some or all, this is a very important match. First, Omos hasn't won a pay-per-view match in ever. Has he won one? Has he won a pay-per-view match?
Did he win WrestleMania Backlash last year against Lashley? Maybe.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to do some research on that while you talk a little bit. But I know
what you mean, though. I know what you mean about him. He hasn't had that definitive win.
No, not at all. And it's not that he needs to have a win to do anything, but he's only been built up as a guy that does. He's elevated from squash matches to enhancement talents to Elias or random people that he's getting wins over. And if you're going to take him seriously, now it was a pass at WrestleMania because it's Brock Lesnar, for God's sake. Yeah. But Omos, had a good showing. He looked tough and destructive there, even though it was a losing effort. Here, you got a guy that will bump for you like a Dolph Ziggler, and but yet Seth Rollins does need, I would say, a victory here purely because he needs the momentum. He's not going to get a shot at Roman. So the only thing for him is to try to get at the top, of the heap for the world title, because I personally think that this new title that was created, is only created for Seth Rollins to win, because I think he's the top face you have outside of Cody. And Cody, who is on Raw, who cannot challenge for the Universal title, was recently interviewed and said, I am still eyeing that Universal title. Why are you drafting him to Raw then? To me, I think by hook or by crook, we might get a Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes final at Night of Champions. That's what I'm kind of theorizing in my head. So to me, I think Seth Rollins either wins this match clean, or Omos wins via help of MVP, Hurt Business, what have you, so Seth can have that adversity going into a tournament, and maybe he fights Omos in a round of the tournament, in a rematch, and gets that win back. And both guys look strong. So I'm taking Omos in this match.
Ooh, I want to take Omos, but there's just, for some reason, I don't think that they're going to give him the victory here. And I think it's just going back to what I think is just traditional babyface booking, where whether they're not the champion or not, I know they have to overcome obstacles, they have to overcome this and that, but I just don't see Rollins losing so closely to the night that I do think he potentially wins that new WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Even though he gets his comeuppance and he gets the revenge on Omos potentially on a Monday Night Raw, I don't know. There's just something about Omos. I mean, he's a big guy, but he's not getting any reaction, and I don't blame him for that, because they're putting him up against enhancement talent for 2 years and then sprinkling in a Lashley or a Brock Lesnar for him to ultimately lose. And he did lose to Lashley at Backlash last year, but your response there, your reaction says exactly what you need. It didn't matter, because months later he was still doing nothing. So I ultimately think Rollins wins this match. I don't know how he wins it because of the size differential, and I know that they still value Omos as this larger-than-life guy, maybe this next attraction. I also would like to see, there were the rumors of King and Queen of the Ring. Actually, they were not rumors. They were initially announced before it changed to Night of Champions. But if they're going to do this tournament, I would love for them to start the tournament as 12 guys on Monday Night Raw, matches for about 2 weeks, and then have the semifinals and the finals of the WWE World Heavyweight Championship tournament at Night of Champions. You can have those 3 matches take place, the first 2 matches of the night, the World Championship to end it, and then in the middle you can sprinkle in a Gunther match. You can sprinkle in a U.S. Championship, Tag Team Championships. I don't want the finals just to be there. It's a Night of Champions. Let's see those guys get to that championship match.
I agree. I think it would behoove of WWE to put over the title even more, the new title even more, if they at least do the final four so that you
Yeah.
at least see. It's like the old King of the Ring. And again, it's not. I'm not asking for the whole damn pay-per-view to come back, but the intrigue there. Let's just go from the first one on pay-per-view. Bret Hart had to win 3 different matches just to win the whole thing, and that proved like, hey, he really earned this thing. So and that was just for King of the Ring. For a world title that you're introducing, it would be great to see them semifinals, maybe at the beginning, the first 2 matches of the night are the semifinals, and then at the end of the night is the main event. So you don't even have a main event for this show other than 1 or 2. And hell, you could have a screwy finish and do a triple threat. The possibilities are endless if you add that second match and don't just have the finals there. And I was just checking. There's 14 pay-per-view marks for Omos. You want to hear them?
Go for it.
AJ and Omos won at WrestleMania 37 and at Money in the Bank 21 in tag matches, but then they lost at SummerSlam, Extreme Rules, and Crown Jewel. Omos won a Battle Royal that I didn't know happened at Survivor Series 21. He lost in the Royal Rumble. He lost to Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania 38 Night 2, but then he got the win back at Backlash. He had those flipped. But then he's lost every other match, including a 2-on-1 with MVP, the Money in the Bank, Mania against Lesnar, and then the Crown Jewel match against Braun Strowman. So he's not done a lot. He has 1 pay-per-view win as a singles competitor, and that was almost 2 years ago. Almost.
I see what you did there. Pull on words. Yeah.
It's a catch-all. So I'm gonna go with Omos. I don't know. It's like Bray Wyatt. How many times does he be on pay-per-view without a win of some sort? So I'm saying he wins.
He just disappears. So
I know. So hopefully for Omos' sake, he doesn't just lose and fall off the face of the earth, because it's a pretty big guy to be lost.
It's a pretty big matzo ball there.
A huge matzo ball. Speaking of huge, let's get to the final 2 matches. Free agent Brock Lesnar. I love the free agent thing. I think Omos is a free agent as well, because
and Dolph Ziggler. So you got to add in Dolph.
Well, Dolph and Omos, Lesnar is the outlier, clearly. This is a match that, once again, Brock Lesnar had a big showing against Omos at WrestleMania. Cody Rhodes couldn't finish the story. So let's just swerve the entire world by having them potentially tag at the beginning of Raw, and then by the end of it, that's your storyline for Backlash. It never happened. So I like that this match is happening. I just wish that there was something other than nothing as a story. Like they're just interrupting each other or calling the other one out, or like pull apart brawls. Like this is WWE's favorite thing, is there is no story, so let's just have them pull apart.
Yeah, and they've done that multiple times here. I think every Lesnar feud over the past 3 years has had somewhat of a pull apart. And
Undertaker, Cena,
all of them. Yeah, you list them, man, and it's interesting. I'm interested in this match. I'm actually interested most on the placement of this match. If this is not the actual main event, I can see this match being a no contest and having this match be ran again either at Money in the Bank or at SummerSlam, which I'd be okay with.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I don't think this is a one-off. I really don't. Because I don't see where Cody, and this is crazy because it's Cody Rhodes, but I don't see a high-profile match, a higher-profile match. Let's rephrase that. I don't see him in a higher-profile match at SummerSlam than against a guy like Brock Lesnar, because he's not going to go against Roman Reigns. And I also think that there's a potential that Cody wins Money in the Bank, holds that briefcase, and calls his shot at WrestleMania next year, similar to what RVD did to cash in against John Cena at One Night Stand, to cash that in as the main event of WrestleMania 40 against the undisputed champion, which he obviously think would be Roman. Again, very long-term booking. That's how I can see it getting from point where we're at now, where he's on Raw, and filling in the people that he has to come up against. But I don't see this being a one-off, so I can see this ending in a no contest, especially because Brock beat the hell out of him and used weapons on that Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. And this is not a no rules, no disqualification street fight. And it's going to be just a battle. I can see either a no contest or a DQ finish.
I would tend to agree with that. Had Lesnar didn't Lesnar just have the no contest type. It was a no DQ, or it was a DQ at Elimination Chamber because they wanted to continue some stuff going.
Bobby Lashley,
So
I believe, right? And they didn't even continue that. So
no, exactly. I'm thinking a little bit differently here. I'm more of the like, I've seen this whole feud pan out to me as not a rehash, but almost an identical parallel to John Cena in 2012, where
Extreme Rules.
He lost to The Rock. God, they did the same type of framed shot where Cena is framed and you see like the celebration in the background. And they did the same thing with Roman celebrating with Cody all dejected. And then the next night it was Brock coming back. And now, like you said, this is not going to be a street fight, no Extreme Rules match that Cena and Lesnar had. But after that match, so Cena won that match, and Cena ended up winning Money in the Bank. Now, he cashed in at Raw 1000. I think if Cody were to win it, he would cash in at SummerSlam. I don't know if he could do it all the way to Mania. But I think Lesnar loses this match here, and I do think he goes away for a little bit, but I think he pops back up for SummerSlam. I just don't know where that would be if that is the case. But I'm looking forward to the match. Like I said, with no build, I can only get so excited for a match, but these two guys, to my knowledge, have never fought before. Am I correct?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think they've never. I mean, at least maybe I don't think they've ever had a one-on-one match. Maybe they had some sort of other random match whenever Cody was, even with Legacy. No, that wouldn't pan out because
it didn't line
wasn't
up
there. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I think you're right.
So to me, and this is where I'm really banking on, and not Money in the Bank, but banking on. If Lesnar does, let's just say I'm going to have Cody win this match. Cody can win this match and go on to the tournament if he wants to. I think Brock Lesnar could do the same for two reasons. Lesnar could go into the tournament and for some reason lose, and I don't know, however he loses, and go away for a little bit. Like that was his last little shot. Maybe you do an angle. But my thing is Lesnar does not get paid. And Saudi Arabia shows you get paid. So I think Lesnar's going to at least go to the Night of Champions show. He doesn't need to work Money in the Bank. Didn't the only other time he worked Money in the Bank, he just showed up and picked up the briefcase and won?
Yep. So, but isn't Money in the Bank, so it goes, I can't.
It's in London.
It's in London, but is that the first week of July or is it June?
June. So Night of Champions is May 27th. And then the Money in the Bank show it's July the 3rd. It's July 1st.
The 3rd, yeah.
So there is no June show, and SummerSlam is the first week of August. So
yeah, August 5th or 6th, whatever that is. So, and the reason I'm asking about the timing of that, because those are three big shows. There's massive. Not a gap.
And two of the three are international. Think about that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's no gap show between those, like a Hell in a Cell or, whatever the situation is. And they're also, again, coming off of, Saudi, which for the longest time, Saudi has been a show where you put on, nostalgic matches. I don't know if they have that well right now to put on nostalgic matches just to pass the time and to fill that.
They could do Roman and Brock again, but it's in Saudi. We've never seen my
God, I'd rather rip my eyes out.
Even though they did. I think, honestly, and this is a sidebar, but I think the best Lesnar Roman match was their more recent one that they had at Crown Jewel. The SummerSlam match was okay, and their Mania match was whatever. The most recent one. But their Crown Jewel match I thought was pretty good.
I thought their SummerSlam and Crown Jewel match was pretty solid, both of them. The SummerSlam one was more of the cool spot that they, with the tractor, the forklift, thing like that. Yeah. Good thing he didn't get gonorrhea there, though. It was a good sign. But yeah, it was just, I think that ship has sailed. But I do think if you were looking to building Cody up again, wouldn't you want to give him more obstacles to overcome, especially since he just lost a month ago to Roman? He doesn't need to full out lose. Again, he could win by DQ, but also have a replay of what happened on Monday night. That could also schedule Brock to be gone for a month, and Cody calls him out and he gets nothing. Okay. So there's options there.
How about this? Just came to me. What if Yeah, because the whole thing has been finish the story, blah 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 blah, and I'm obsessed with why is he on this other brand when even though
Yep.
I'm obsessed with that point, even though I'm also assuming he's going to win Money in the Bank and it's going to nullify the whole thing anyway.
Yep.
So if that's going to be the case, he could lose. Let's have him lose this match against Lesnar. Lesnar gets all the momentum in the world for the tournament, but Cody could potentially cost him that.
Yeah.
That way maybe you could do a Money in the Bank match where you maybe they're both in it. I don't know, but I think Cody could lose.
Cody can cost Brock the main event, the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, and help
Oh my
Seth
God!
Rollins.
If it's Seth Rollins and Lesnar, that would be and then that would lead to a Seth. That could wow. Look at us. That could lead to a lot. So
yep, we got the pencil right now, Juice.
I'm glad it's not the pen because that's permanent. Take the pen. I don't know. I'm gonna say
last call. Who do you got? You got Cody. You got Brock or no finish?
Oh God, I know. I'm gonna say Cody takes him to the limit, but give me Brock Lesnar purely for the adversity. Because if you really wanted to, if Cody's not gonna win at WrestleMania after all that, let's just have him lose literally until he gets Money in the Bank, and then have him win. I hope Cody loses every match.
All right. Well, I'm going to take a no finish because I think the finish of this pay-per-view is going to be on a high note and it's going to be Bad Bunny. I think that's going to be the main event. I don't care which one is the main event, but I don't think they'll end on a no DQ or a DQ or a no contest as the main event. So
would you consider Cody Brock as the opener? How hot would it be if the first music you hear is either Cody? If you hear Cody, if the lights go down and you hear wrestling has only one royal family.
I mean, the only other match that I think that should start it would probably be the six-man.
The six-man could work for sure.
Yeah. I
don't know, with the crowd being at a fever pitch. I mean, I could see.
You might as well.
I know that the street fight probably won't be the first match, but like I could see like any of that or the Cody match or the six-man start. Again, I can even see Seth and Omos starting purely because Seth is so over and that song could be going on for like 10 minutes over, was it Paris or London?
Yeah.
They did it for like 10 minutes straight. So he's so over. This is why we think he's going to be the world champion, Seth Rollins. So I can feasibly see any of those matches, but.
Yep. And I'm good with any of those three.
Yeah. But the match that I hope closes, even though there's no stakes other than, it's a street fight, so we want to beat the hell out of whoever you're facing. Bad Bunny, #1 global superstar in the world right now. I cannot believe that WWE has him at this show in Puerto Rico, and he's hosting, and he's in a match, high-profile match, a San Juan street fight against Damian Priest, who I remember seeing him as Punishment Martinez in Ring of Honor. I remember when he first became the Archer of Infamy. Was that it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In NXT. And he's almost, I kind of liken him to a DDP. He's 40. He's not a spring chicken by any accounts, but he's really had this renaissance of sorts with the Judgment Day thing and now with the Bad Bunny thing, which is a great part two to them being tag partners to beat Morrison and Miz at WrestleMania last year. Mm-hmm. I just love this, or 2 years ago rather, but I love that this match is happening. This crowd is going to be electric all night. They're going to lose it when Bad Bunny comes out. They're going to lose it when Damian Priest comes out because they'll be hyped that he's in this spot, and where else would you want to have him in this spot? They've set this thing up wonderfully. It didn't need to be anything crazy. I thought we were going to get a tag with Dom and Ray, but hey, they said,
I'm good it didn't go that way.
Me too. I'm happy that Bad Bunny gets a solo spot. Damian Priest gets because we all know this is going to be Damian Priest's match. He's going to be the leader here. But Bad Bunny's had a great time in the ring thus far, and his best moments were with Damian Priest as the tag. So it's going to be easy for them, I think, to work, and I'm sure they've been practicing this and had this on the docket for quite some time. We're finally here. I can't wait to see what Bad Bunny pulls out here. I'm looking forward. I sound like you. I'm looking forward to seeing what he wears to this. I'm
He's probably gonna wear the bulletproof vest like he did at WrestleMania, right?
The 2032 vest.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I also am curious as to hear what song he comes out to, because he came out to Booker T, his song before, so I'm not sure. And like we said, like if this closes the match, or if this closes the pay-per-view, that would make the most sense if he's still technically the host, because it's
That's
weird.
What I was thinking too.
If he's the host and he's just like, well, I gotta go do my match middle of the show, and then we're gonna come back later. If he's annihilated, like what's gonna happen? So I think he'll probably host all night leading up to it, which again, it's such a different dynamic. We don't see these types of things very often.
And I think maybe he's the one who opens the show up as the host.
Oh,
you know, like coming out and welcoming the crowd. Yeah, and I'll be honest.
Have any match first, and it wouldn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. So like if he comes out and starts the night, like speaking to the crowd, and then maybe now the more that I think about it, I could see him getting the crowd hyped up as the host, and then you have a guy like Seth Rollins come out and start the night. I think that's a good option that they should. Again, 2 hot pops to start it. You can fix in potentially Brock and Cody, I guess, but I think that match would be a good one to start things off. But I think this match has the potential to do one of 2 things. I think it has the potential to make Damian Priest a legitimate main event guy with nuclear heat similar to Dom Mysterio in his hometown, because he's going to be the bad guy even though he's from Puerto Rico. He'll get a good reaction. But there's nobody bigger, hell, in the world, really, to be honest with you, than Bad Bunny in terms of entertainment and music. And just, it's so interesting because WWE has done such a great job recently at catering to hometowns. Elimination Chamber in Montreal was fantastic. This in Puerto Rico is going to be wonderful. Obviously, there's going to be some down spots because they're going to, Detroit, which doesn't really have a connection, or,
Clash at the Castle last year.
Drew McIntyre, Clash, yeah. And they didn't have to win. Sammy didn't win. Drew didn't win. Bad Bunny doesn't have to win, but I think Bad Bunny somehow wins.
They strike when the iron's hot recently, and I don't know if it's coincidence, but that Clash at the Castle was the beginning of that Triple H regime. Yep. That was the first PLE that he really had solo control over. Yep. We don't know who has the control now, but either way, this match has a lot of intrigue. I got to think Bad Bunny wins this match. I think it's a street fight, so Damian Priest can lose, and it's not the worst thing in the world. You're going to have the LWO. You're going to have the Judgment Day come out. Yep. I hope – there you go. Bad Bunny might have an LWO shirt. That would be a pop, wouldn't that?
That'd be a good idea. Yeah.
Comes out with a jacket or some sort. Maybe he pulls that off. Maybe he has some wrestling gear we're not privy to,
Or Eddie also come out in the Eddie Guerrero car potentially with the LWO.
The lowrider? Oh, man. Yeah, see, the options are there, and again, fever pitch for this whole night. But if this is the main event, even, I think Bad Bunny is going to win. Much like the Zelina Vega, where your hometown you're going to lose. You said it, man. Damian Priest is going to be over like Rover, regardless of a winner or loss. Like he's going to have the most heat, no matter what. And this is his big moment. If he can put a guy like Bad Bunny, who is not a wrestler, but he's the biggest star in the world. God, he sold out the streets of Puerto Rico when he did a show on top of a gas station. Like he could do anything. So Damian Priest has probably no issue putting this guy over, and it's not going to hurt him whatsoever.
I think this is his WrestleMania moment. These are both their guys' WrestleMania moment because how much Puerto Rico means to both of them.
Absolutely. And again, I don't know. Damian Priest he's been so impressive since becoming a part of the Judgment Day. I'm so glad that when it first started, I was like, all right, this is cool. And then they turned on Edge, and it became a really interesting thing. And they like the Bloodline, they have somehow made little nuances and intricacies and made each week a little bit more interesting, a little bit more intrigue. And now we're at a point where Damian Priest is main eventing a pay-per-view in his home country against the number one music star in the world, who's also
fantastic. Yeah, which is great. And you're right. They've done little nuances to make the Judgment Day, little pieces to make them better, whether it was Rhea's transformation, whether it was Dominic being Dominic Mysterio and getting the most heat, and if Finn Balor was the guy who actually had the match at WrestleMania against Edge, and that feud was what it was. It was a good Hell in a Cell match. They didn't the feud was 1 year in the making, but there was a lot of start and stops because Edge wasn't there every single week, which ultimately benefits if you want to do a year-long storyline. You don't want to see those guys and gals every week face each other, but they had that opportunity where Elimination Chamber had the mixed tag team match, and then you have Finn and Edge at WrestleMania, and Damian was always the outlier. Dom had his thing. Ray and Dom, obviously one of the most intriguing matches at WrestleMania leading up to it. We knew Rhea was going to become women's champion, and then you had Finn in a Hell in a Cell match. A guy that was not really taken accounted for as a main guy was Damian, but here he is now, more important in this moment than any WrestleMania match he could have had. If it was Edge and him at WrestleMania, still wouldn't have been as important as a match at Backlash in Puerto Rico. So they did a really great job, though, at keeping all of the members of the Judgment Day important in their own positions.
Right, and I was going to say, it makes them all relevant. And I had been saying that leading up to Mania because, Finn, for better or worse, is not the best promo, but he's solid, right? But I think Damian Priest has come into his own as a promo, and he's a very believable giant. Whenever he was first coming up through NXT, maybe it was because of his Scott Hall influenced gear, but I had a lot of Scott Hall, a lot of Kevin Nash, like the swagger that he brings. I really like that character. So for him to not be involved at WrestleMania, and to any person looking at that would say, wow, what a demotion. Man, what a fall from grace for this guy. Yet the following month, he's going to be, again, #1 global superstar, main event, home country, both of these guys. Like, it could not be any bigger. And I think those are enough stakes for Damian Priest, and Bad Bunny. You don't need a title on the line for this. It's all about this.
Yep.
So.
And that's why I think this main events.
I agree, and I really hope it does. I think there's only one other match that would contend for that, and that's the Cody Brock thing. But even if Cody and Brock was, #1 contender or something, maybe I could see that. But with a tournament looming and those guys practically just fighting for a spot on, and we might have a little bit more momentum or a little bit less going into this tournament, assuming at least Cody's going to be in it. Then, I'd rather have a Bad Bunny, Damian Priest, what do they call it? The attraction, the special attraction.
Yeah, the marquee.
The marquee, the big names, the bright lights, the Puerto Rico.
The lights are on bright tonight, Mago.
So I'm looking forward to this show, man. I do believe we will be watching this show together. Is that correct?
Well, I do believe we'll be mixing some sodas together. Yes, that is correct.
I like me some soda. I'm about to have myself a snack. So, man, this has been great. I loved having you on for the WrestleMania prediction show. We killed it. I thought we had a great little interaction there. And, man, time flies, but time really doesn't fly because we just cruised right through these 7 matches. Normally, like I said, this is we saw this match last month. Predict the other outcome this month. And yet, we get a whole bunch of new matches, a fresh crop of stuff, and I'm thoroughly looking for, between Elimination Chamber and this show, 2 shows that bookend WrestleMania in between, normally are the most, quote, unimportant or not relevant, or nothing happens of relevancy on these shows. Now, the Elimination Chamber was one of the most exciting shows I've seen in a long time, purely based on the story and the main event and where it took place. And that same thing is going to happen here with the story and the main event and where it took place. It's unbelievable.
Well, it's in the beaches of San Juan, Puerto Rico, so you got to dress your cabana wear if you end up coming to watch the show with me, by the way. So Rudy's has a deal this weekend.
That's $25. That's what my life is worth to him. $25.
Can you make it $225?
This is my father's high game in bowling.
Can't wait to see it, man. It's going to be a great show, though. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, me too, man. And appreciate you coming on as always. Hopefully you'll be welcome for more shows and definitely more prediction shows because
yes, sir.
I don't want to talk any predictions with anybody else other than Josh Isenberg.
Look at you. You know how to tickle my fancy.
I know I'm tickling your buying bone.
Tickle the bite bone.
So, yeah, man, thanks a lot again. Appreciate it for being on. And, hopefully this show delivers to the extent that we're getting hyped for. So, any last word?
Nope, can't wait, man. Excited to see it this weekend with you.
Awesome. All right, this has been Josh Isenberg on the Juice Box, and this has been the Juice Box. We'll see you next week for some reaction on Backlash. I am Juice Springsteen. He is Josh Isenberg, and you've been listening to the Juice Box.
That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.